When Ronan Mercer handed me a $28,000 invoice across his mahogany table, and 30 relatives applauded like I'd just won the privilege of servitude, I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I smiled, because in the black leather portfolio sitting on my lap was a lawsuit I'd filed 3 weeks earlier, a lawsuit that would take back every stolen dollar, every forged signature, every lie he'd told me for 26 years. The lease pendants was already recorded. The properties were already frozen. The FBI already had my evidence package. He had no idea the trap had already closed around him. My name is Solea Blake, though I'd been called Solea Mercer for most of my life. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. It was March 15th, 2024, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was sitting in what used to feel like my family's living room. The Coral Gables estate had floor-to-ceiling windows that caught the Miami sun just right, making everything look golden and warm. There were 30 people crammed into that space. Aunts, uncles, cousins I barely knew, all dressed in their Sunday best for what Ronan called an estate planning celebration. He stood at the head of the table like a king addressing his court. Ronan was 58 but looked younger, one of those men who'd aged into his features. Silver hair, deep tan, expensive watch that caught the light when he gestured. He'd always known how to command a room. "Family," he began, voice full of practiced warmth. "Thank you for being here. After 30 years of building Mercer properties from nothing." He paused, letting that word hang in the air. Nothing. I'm proud to announce that our 6 Miami Beach condominiums will be transferred to my son Devin, effective immediately. The room erupted in applause. Devin stood beside his father, 28 years old and beaming, his fiancée Harper Monroe clutching his arm like she'd just won the lottery. Maybe she thought she had. The Monroe family had money, old Florida money, the kind that came with a hyphenated last name and a house in Palm Beach. Harper's father was a developer. She'd grown up expecting a certain kind of life. Devin had been promised he could provide it. My cousin Tessa, sitting across from me with a reporter's notebook in her lap, raised an eyebrow in my direction. She'd always been sharper than the rest of them. "This is wonderful, Ronan," Aunt Paula gushed, my mother's sister, though she'd never treated me like actual family. "You've built such an empire. Devin is so lucky to have a father like you." Ronan soaked it in, then turned his attention to me. I felt 30 pairs of eyes follow his gaze. "Solea," he said, and his voice shifted, still warm, but with an edge underneath, like a teacher addressing a student who needed correction. "Sweetheart, you've always been the practical one, the responsible one. We have an emergency maintenance assessment coming due, $28,000, to keep these properties in good standing. Since you're the forensic accountant making 6 figures, we're asking you to handle this. Consider it your final contribution to the family honor." He slid the invoice across the polished wood. It stopped right in front of me, the numbers printed in bold. $28,000. Due March 18th, 2024. More applause. Aunt Paula reached over to pat my hand, her rings cold against my skin. "It's only fair, dear. You have the stable career. We all made sacrifices to get you where you are." I looked at that invoice. I looked at the faces around the table. People who'd watched me grow up, who'd eaten at family dinners, who'd never once asked where I slept or why Devin got new clothes while I wore hand-me-downs. People who'd never questioned why a man who supposedly built an empire from nothing treated his own goddaughter like hired help. I could have signed it. For years, I would have signed it. I would have taken out my checkbook, written the amount, and thanked Ronan for letting me contribute to the family legacy. But I'd spent the last 8 months building a case. 8 months of late nights in my Coconut Grove apartment, spreading documents across my kitchen table, tracing wire transfers, analyzing property records, interviewing witnesses. 8 months of playing the role of dutiful niece while I systematically dismantled the lie my entire life had been built on. I opened my portfolio and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The room went quiet in that way rooms do when people sense something is about to shift. Mr. Gaines, I said, addressing the family attorney sitting at the far end of the table. Before anyone signs anything, I have a question. Have you reviewed the original Blake Family Trust documents from July 1998? Philip Gaines looked up, confused. He was 60-something, round-faced, the kind of lawyer who handled wills and property transfers for Coral Gables families. He'd been Ronan's attorney for 20 years. Blake Trust? He adjusted his glasses. Ronan, I don't have any Blake files in my records. I thought Soleia's parents left minimal assets. I slid the document across the table, watching it glide over the polished mahogany until it stopped in front of him. That's because the trust was hidden from you, too, Mr. Gaines. Cameron and Iris Blake, my biological parents, left $1.8 million in trust for me when they died in 1998. Here's the original trust document, filed with Miami-Dade Probate Court on July 20th, 1998. Case number 98 CP014376. The silence that followed was the kind you feel in your bones. I didn't look at Ronan. Not yet. I watched Mr. Gaines instead, watched his face go from confusion to shock as he read the first page. Mr. Gaines, please turn to page 14, section 5.3. Does it say anywhere that the trustee, Ronan Mercer, can use beneficiary funds to purchase real estate for personal enrichment? His voice came out thin. No. In fact, it specifically prohibits self-dealing and requires annual accounting to the beneficiary at age 18. Now I looked at Ronan. His face had gone from bronze to ash, the color draining in real time. His hand, which had been resting confidently on the table, now gripped the edge until his knuckles went white. Soleia, he started, but I cut him off. I'd like to enter into the record, I said, my voice steady in a way I'd practiced 100 times in front of my bathroom mirror, that the 6 Miami Beach properties Ronan just announced he's giving to Devin were purchased using funds from my trust. Here, I placed another document on the table, are the wire transfer records showing $2.4 million moved from Blake Family Trust to a shell company called B&C Holdings LLC, opened using my social security number when I was 5 years old. Tessa's pen was moving fast across her notepad. Harper Monroe's champagne glass was frozen halfway to her mouth. Here, another document, is the forged power of attorney from 2011, supposedly signed by me when I turned 18. Forensic handwriting analysis proves it wasn't my signature. Devin took a step back from the table. Dad, what is she talking about? I pulled out a 4th document, this one thicker. Here is testimony from Lawrence Whitmore, Ronan's former accountant, confirming that Ronan instructed him to lie to me about the trust balance when I turned 18. Mr. Whitmore was paid an $8,000 bonus to falsify the accounting. The room exploded. Aunt Cecily gasped. Harper set down her glass and whispered something to Devin. Maribel, Ronan's wife, the woman I'd called Antoinette for 26 years, stood up, her face pale. And finally, I said, placing the last document on the table, this is case number 24CA009847, filed February 20th, 2024, in Miami-Dade Circuit Court. I'm suing Ronan Mercer for breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, identity theft, and conversion. I've already placed liens on all 6 properties. He can't sell them, he can't transfer them, and he can't touch a single dollar until this is resolved. Ronan stood now, his chair scraping against the floor. This is insane! I raised you. I gave you a home when no one else would. You gave me a home that I paid for, I said, my voice finally rising. With my own money. Money you stole when I was 5 years old. Ronan, Mr. Gaines said quietly, I need to speak with you privately, right now. But I wasn't finished. Since everyone's here, I continued, looking around the room at all those faces that had ignored me for years. Let me share a few more things. When I was 16 and asked for $3,000 to attend a leadership camp, you said we couldn't afford it. That same month, you bought Devin a $35,000 car, using returns from my trust. When I was 22 and asked for a $5,000 loan to start my business, you laughed and told me to be realistic. That same week, you gave Devin $40,000 to pay off gambling debts, using my trust funds. Harper Monroe was staring at Devin now, her expression changing in real time. For 4 years, I've worked without pay to save your company from bankruptcy. I've given you $127,000 in cash and loans you never repaid. I've worked 3,200 unbilled hours fixing your accounting mistakes. And you want to know the sickest part? I looked directly at Ronan for the first time since I'd started talking. You took out a $750,000 life insurance policy on me in 2019. You made yourself the beneficiary. I wasn't your niece, Ronan. I was your investment property. I was worth more to you dead than alive. The gasps this time were audible, visceral. Even Tessa stopped writing. Devin stepped away from his father. Dad, tell me this isn't true. Ronan opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. For the first time in my life, I watched him struggle to find words. I can explain. The properties are frozen, I said. You can't sell them, you can't move them, and you can't access any funds from them. The FBI is reviewing your case for wire fraud and identity theft. The IRS is auditing 25 years of fraudulent tax returns. Mr. Gaines will be withdrawing as your counsel. I looked at the attorney, who nodded slowly. And you'll need a criminal defense lawyer by Monday morning. I stood up, picking up my portfolio. The invoice, that $28,000 demand, sat untouched on the table. You have a choice, I said. Settle this quietly and return what's mine, or fight me in court and add criminal charges to civil penalties. But either way, the life you built on my parents' blood money is over. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Harper Monroe say to Devin, We need to talk. Outside. Now. I heard Aunt Paula crying. I heard someone, maybe Aunt Cecily, say, Oh my God. Oh my God. I heard Ronan sink into his chair, the air going out of him like a punctured balloon. But I didn't look back. I walked through that golden foyer, past the family portraits that had never included me in the center, past the expensive furniture bought with my stolen inheritance, and out into the humid Miami afternoon. My car was parked in the circular driveway. A Tesla, bought with my own money, earned from a job I'd worked 3 years to get after putting myself through college. Not a gift, not a handout. Mine. I sat in the driver's seat and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My phone buzzed. A text from my best friend Vivian. How did it go? I typed back. Exactly as planned. Because this moment, this confrontation, hadn't been spontaneous. It had been strategic, calculated. The culmination of 8 months of investigation that started with a single nagging question and ended with 847 pages of evidence. But to understand how I got here, to this moment, to this power, I need to take you back. Back to the beginning. Back to when I was 5 years old and the world as I knew it ended on a stretch of highway in the Florida Keys. July 8th, 1998. I don't remember the phone call that changed my life. I was too young. But I remember the aftermath, the way my grandmother's face looked when she told me Mommy and Daddy weren't coming home. The way her voice broke on the word accident. The way she held me while I cried and asked when they'd be back, not understanding that never was an answer. My parents, Cameron and Iris Blake, died in a head-on collision on Highway 1. A drunk driver crossed the center line. They died instantly, the police said. They didn't suffer. That's what adults tell children when they don't know what else to say. Cameron was an architect, 35 years old, brilliant, the kind of man who could look at a blank lot and see a building that didn't exist yet. He'd started his own firm 3 years before he died, and it was just beginning to take off. He smelled like coffee and pencil shavings. He wore glasses that left marks on his nose. He used to let me sit in his lap while he sketched. Iris was a pediatric surgeon, 34, dark hair like mine, hands that could save children's lives. She sang while she cooked. Always the same song, Blackbird by the Beatles. She had a window seat in our Coconut Grove house where we'd read together on Sunday mornings. They were supposed to take me to Disney World that August. We had the tickets on the refrigerator. They were responsible people. They'd planned for emergencies. They had life insurance. $1.2 million with a double indemnity clause for accidental death. They had a will. They had a trust set up for me with clear instructions. The money was mine, to be managed conservatively by a trustee until I turned 25. The trustee they named was Ronan Mercer, Cameron's best friend since college, my godfather, the man who'd been at every birthday party, every holiday dinner, who'd taught me how to ride a bike. Cameron trusted him completely. In his will, he even included a handwritten letter. I wouldn't read that letter until I was 32 years old, sitting in a Miami courthouse with a probate file open in front of me. But when I did, I cried in a public lobby while a bailiff asked if I was okay. The letter said, "Ronan, my brother, if you're reading this, Iris and I are gone. I'm naming you trustee because I trust you more than anyone. You're Soleia's godfather. I know you'll protect her. The money is her future. Promise me, Ronan, you'll treat her like your own daughter. You'll love her. Take care of my little flower. Your brother, Cameron." My father called me his little flower. Soleia means sun in some languages, but to him I was always his little flower growing toward the light. He trusted Ronan to protect that light. Ronan extinguished it instead. But I didn't know that in 1998. I was 5 years old, and the world had just cracked open beneath me. My grandmother was too old to raise a child full-time. My father's brother Nathan was named as backup trustee, but he was fighting cancer. He'd die 2 years later. My mother's family was scattered, distant. Ronan stepped forward. Of course he did. That's what heroes do in stories. "Emily," he told my grandmother, "Soleia will come live with us. Annette and I have the space. We have Devin. He's only 2. They'll grow up together. Cameron would want this. Let us take care of her." I remember the day I moved into the Mercer house. September 1998. Ronan carried my boxes up to a small room on the second floor, a converted home office, maybe 110 square feet, with no closet and a window that looked out at the neighbor's fence. Down the hall, Devin had the big bedroom with the bay windows and attached bathroom. Even at 5, I understood the difference. But Ronan knelt down, put his hands on my shoulders, and said, "Your family now, little flower. This is your home." I believed him. For the next 26 years, I believed him. The inequalities started small. So small I barely noticed them at first. Devin got new clothes from Gap Kids. I wore hand-me-downs from my cousin Tessa, who was 3 years older and had different taste. When I asked why, Annette said, "We're teaching you not to be materialistic, sweetheart. It's good for character." Devin went to private Montessori school. I went to public elementary. "You're naturally smart," Ronan said. "You'll thrive anywhere. Devin needs extra support." At 8 years old, I won the school math competition. My prize was a certificate and a $25 gift card to Barnes & Noble. I was so proud. I showed Ronan at dinner. He smiled, said, "That's great, honey," and went back to talking to Devin about his soccer game. That same month, Devin's team came in 3rd place in a tournament. Ronan threw him a pizza party and bought him a new bike. I told myself it was fine. They were his real parents. I was lucky they'd taken me in at all. When I turned 11, I asked Ronan about my parents for the first time with real curiosity. Not the grief of a child, but the questions of someone old enough to wonder about money and planning and what happened to the house I used to live in. "Uncle Ronan," I said one evening while he was reading the newspaper, "did my dad leave me anything? Like, did they have savings or insurance?" He put down the paper slowly. His expression shifted, not angry, but serious, like I'd asked something I shouldn't have. "Your parents were wonderful people, Soleia, but they didn't plan ahead financially. The insurance money barely covered the funeral and their debts. That's why you live with us. If there had been money, I would have told you." "Oh," I said, feeling stupid for asking. "I'm sorry." "Don't apologize, just don't worry about things like that. Focus on school. Be grateful for what you have." I stopped asking after that. By the time I was 16, the pattern was impossible to ignore, but I'd learned to rationalize it. When Devin got a brand new Audi A4 for his birthday, and I got a bus pass and a $50 Visa gift card, I told myself, he's their son. Of course they treat him differently. When I asked Ronan for $3,000 to attend a summer leadership program, I had the essay written, the application ready, and he said they couldn't afford it. I believed him. 2 weeks later, I saw the credit card statement on the kitchen counter. Devon's Xbox 360 and 15 games, $847. A golf membership for Ronan, $2,400. A spa weekend for Annette, $950. They couldn't afford $3,000 for my future, but they could afford luxury for themselves. I worked 2 jobs in high school, Starbucks and tutoring, to save money for college. Devon didn't work. He didn't need to. I got into the University of Miami with a partial scholarship, but the remaining tuition was $18,000 a year. I asked Ronan if there was any way to help. His face darkened. Soleya, I've been housing you, feeding you, clothing you for 13 years. I've given you everything. And now you're asking for more? The words hit like a slap. I'm not made of money, he continued. Your parents didn't leave you anything. Do you understand? Nothing. If you want to go to an expensive school, find a way to pay for it yourself. I chose Florida State instead. $6,000 a year. I could manage that with loans and work study. I graduated with a 3.89 GPA and $24,000 in student debt. Devon went to a private university, failed half his classes his first year, had to repeat a semester, and graduated with a degree in business management 5 years later. His total student debt, 0. But the cruelest part, the part that makes my hands shake even now when I think about it, was what happened when I turned 18. September 2011. Legally an adult. Old enough to ask real questions. I sat Ronan down in his home office, prepared my words carefully. Uncle Ronan, I've been thinking about my parents. If they had life insurance, even a small policy, wouldn't there have been something left? Enough for college, maybe? He sighed, the sound of a man exhausted by an ungrateful child. Soleya, your father was an architect, yes. He made decent money, but your mother had medical school debt. They had a mortgage. They lived well, but they didn't save. The life insurance was about $150,000, not millions. After funeral costs, probate fees, outstanding debts, it was gone in 6 months. Annette appeared in the doorway. Honey, she said gently, we love you, but you need to accept reality. Your parents weren't financially responsible. We've been supporting you your whole life. That's our gift to you. I felt ashamed. Ashamed for asking. Ashamed for wanting more. Ashamed for not being grateful enough. I graduated college in 2015 and got my CPA certification. By 2016, I was working as a forensic accountant at a regional firm, starting salary $68,000. I was good at my job, finding fraud, tracing money, detecting patterns in financial statements that didn't add up. The irony wasn't lost on me later. In 2017, Ronan called. His construction business was in trouble. IRS audit, potential fraud charges, the whole company on the brink of collapse. Soleya, I need your help. Please, just look at the books. Tell me what I'm missing. I took 2 weeks of vacation time. I worked 16-hour days in his dusty office, sorting through years of receipts and ledgers and bank statements. I found $240,000 in expenses that shouldn't have been there. Personal charges coded as business costs. Devon's bar tabs. Golf memberships. A vacation to Turks and Caicos that Ronan had written off as a business development trip. I fixed it. Restructured the accounting. Filed amended returns. Saved him from an $85,000 penalty and possible criminal charges. Thank you, Soleya, he said, hugging me. You saved my life. I'll pay you back for this time. I promise. He never did. By 2022, I'd given Ronan and his family over $127,000 in cash and unpaid labor. Every time there was a crisis, I was the one who fixed it. Every time Devon screwed up, I was the one who covered for it. And every time I needed something, a loan, support, acknowledgement, I got nothing but lectures about gratitude. I was 30 years old, living in a modest apartment in Wynwood, driving a used Honda, budgeting carefully. Devon was 26, living in a condo his father paid for, driving a BMW, working 10 hours a week at the family business for a $75,000 salary. And still, I told myself I was lucky. Still, I felt guilty for wanting more. Still, I believed I was the burden. Until November 2022, when Ronan posted something on Facebook that made me stop scrolling. Grateful for all I've built. Self-made man. Started with nothing. Now owns 6 properties in Miami Beach. Hard work pays off. #blessed. #entrepreneur. I stared at that post for a long time. Started with nothing. But I remembered something. A conversation from years ago, back when I was in high school. Ronan telling a story at a family dinner about his first big break in real estate. Buying his first investment property in September 1998, right after Cameron died. Taking a calculated risk that paid off. September 1998, 1 month after my parents' insurance money would have been distributed. I pulled up my laptop and searched Florida property records. Public information, available to anyone. I typed in Ronan Mercer in 1998. One result came up. 2801 Collins Avenue, Unit 4B, Miami Beach. Purchased September 22nd, 1998. Sale price, $315,000. Down payment, $84,000. For a man whose business was supposedly struggling that year, an $84,000 down payment? I kept searching. March 2001, another property. June 2004, another. January 2008, another. 6 properties total, purchased between 1998 and 2017. Total current value, $7.2 million. And every single one was owned by an LLC called B&C Holdings. I clicked on the business registration. Formation date, August 12, 1998. 10 days after my parents died. Registered agent, Ronan Mercer. Business address, my childhood home in Coconut Grove, the house my parents owned. And the owners listed, Solea Blake, 70%, Ronan Mercer, 30%. I stared at my laptop screen, the light flickering in my dark apartment, and felt something cold settle in my chest. I'd been listed as an owner of this company since I was 5 years old. I'd never heard of it. The next morning, I pulled my credit report for the first time in years. There it was. B&C Holdings, LLC, opened August 1998, using my Social Security number, an account I'd never authorized. A company I'd never known existed. I sat at my kitchen table with my coffee going cold, and I finally let myself think the thought I'd been pushing away for 26 years. What if he stole it? What if the money had been there all along? What if Ronan had lied? I called in sick to work. I drove to the Miami-Dade probate court. I waited in line for 40 minutes. When I finally reached the clerk, I said, "I need to see the estate file for Cameron and Iris Blake, deceased July 1998. "Are you a beneficiary?" "I'm their daughter." The clerk disappeared into the back. 20 minutes later, she returned with a file box. "You can review these in the public room. No phones, no photos, but you can request copies." I sat in a hard plastic chair under fluorescent lights and opened the file. The first document I saw was the will. 12 pages, dated March 1996. "We, Cameron Blake and Iris Blake, being of sound mind, do hereby..." I skipped ahead to the important part. "All assets, property, and funds shall be placed in trust for our daughter, Solea Blake, to be administered by trustee Ronan James Mercer according to the attached trust agreement." My hands were shaking. I turned to the trust agreement. Blake Family Irrevocable Trust, established March 15, 1996. Beneficiary, Solea Blake, age 3. Assets, to be funded upon death of grantors. Total estimated value, $1,847,000. $1,847,000, not $150,000, not barely enough to cover the funeral. Nearly $2 million. I kept reading, my vision blurring. Trustee duties, conservative investment of trust assets. Annual accounting to beneficiary beginning at age 18. Partial distributions permitted for education, health, and welfare. Full distribution of remaining principal at age 25. Prohibited actions. Trustee may not use trust funds for personal benefit. Trustee may not engage in self-dealing. Trustee must maintain detailed records of all transactions. There was more, pages and pages of legal language, but I couldn't focus. All I could see was that number, $1,847,000. At the back of the file, clipped to the trust agreement, was a handwritten letter. The paper had yellowed slightly, the ink faded but still legible. My father's handwriting. I recognized it from the birthday cards he'd written before he died, the ones my grandmother had saved for me. "Ronan, my brother?" I read the whole thing, tears streaming down my face in a public courthouse while people walked past, pretending not to notice. My father had trusted Ronan, had called him brother, had asked him to love me like his own daughter, and Ronan had stolen everything. I made copies of every page in that file, 147 pages total, $147 in copy fees. I paid with my credit card, hands still shaking, and walked out into the Miami afternoon with a box of evidence under my arm. I drove back to my apartment, carried the box upstairs, and spread the documents across my kitchen table. Then I opened my laptop and started a new spreadsheet. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was just calculating. For the first time in my life, I looked at my skills, the forensic accounting training, the fraud detection expertise, the pattern recognition, and I turned them on my own family. That was April 16th, 2023, the day I stopped being the grateful niece and started being the investigator. And now, 10 months later, I was sitting in my Tesla outside the house Ronan built with my stolen inheritance, watching the life he'd constructed collapse in real time. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Miss Blake, this is Special Agent Jennifer Dawson, FBI, Miami Field Office. We received your criminal referral package. I'd like to schedule a time to discuss your case." I smiled. "Of course, Agent Dawson, I'm available tomorrow." I scheduled the FBI meeting for the following Tuesday. That gave me 3 days to prepare, though in truth, I'd been preparing for months. Agent Dawson sounded professional on the phone, clipped, efficient, the kind of voice that had asked hard questions for a living. I wasn't nervous. I had 847 pages of documentation. The truth was on my side, but before I could meet with federal investigators, before I could walk into that Miami field office with my evidence binders, I need to take you back. Back to April 2023, when I first walked out of that courthouse with Cameron's letter in my hands and a question burning in my chest. How do I prove this? Because discovering theft and proving theft are two very different things. The morning after I found the trust documents, I called in sick to work again. I couldn't focus on someone else's fraud case when my entire life had just revealed itself to be a fraud. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, the courthouse documents spread around me, and I made a list. What I know, trust existed. $1.8 million in 1998. B&C Holdings LLC used my SSN when I was 5. 6 properties purchased 1998 to 2017. Ronan lied to me about money for 26 years. What I need to prove. Trust funds were misappropriated. Properties were bought with trust money, not business profits. Ronan knew this was illegal. Pattern of systematic theft, not mistake. What I don't know yet. Where is the money now? Did Annette know? Can I get it back? Who can I trust? That last question was the hardest. For 26 years, Ronan had been family. The idea of investigating him, of treating him like the fraud cases I worked on professionally, felt like betrayal. But then I looked at Cameron's letter again. "Promise me, Ronan, you'll treat her like your own daughter." And I felt something harden in my chest. This wasn't betrayal. This was accounting. I picked up my phone and called the one person I knew I could trust. Vivian Cross and I met freshman year at Florida State. She was pre-med then, brilliant and driven, the kind of student who color-coded her notes and never missed a deadline. By junior year, she'd switched to accounting. Medical school was her parents' dream, not hers, and we'd bonded over late-night study sessions and a shared obsession with finding patterns in numbers. She was a CPA now, working in audit at a mid-size firm in Brickell. She was also the only person who'd met Ronan and said years ago after a family dinner, "Does it bother you that he treats you differently than Devin?" I'd brushed it off then. "They're his real family." Vivian had given me a look, the kind of look that said that's not okay, but she'd dropped it. She was good at reading when to push and when to wait. Now, sitting across from her at a coffee shop in Coconut Grove, I watched her face change as she read through the courthouse documents. "Oh my God," she said finally, looking up at me. "Solea." "I know. This is—" She flipped through pages, her hands moving faster. "This is textbook trustee fraud. He had a fiduciary duty. He violated it, systematically, for decades." She looked at me, and I saw something in her expression I'd never seen before. Fury. Vivian was the calmest person I knew, the one who never raised her voice. But now her jaw was tight, her eyes blazing. "He stole from you when you were 5 years old, and then he made you feel guilty for asking about it." Hearing someone else say it out loud made it real in a way it hadn't been when it was just me and my spreadsheets. "What do I do?" I asked. "You need 3 people," she said immediately. "Estate litigation attorney, private investigator, and a therapist." "A therapist?" "Because when you take him down, and you are going to take him down, you need someone to help you process that you were right to do it. This isn't just fraud, Solea. This is betrayal by someone you loved. That's going to mess with your head even if you're doing the right thing." She wasn't wrong. "I can help you run the numbers," she continued, pulling out her own laptop. "Let's start with the basics. If the trust was $1.8 million in 1998, conservatively invested at, say, 6% average annual return over 25 years. She typed into a compound interest calculator. You should have about $7.8 million right now. The number sat between us like a bomb. $7.8 million. That was my inheritance, my security, my parents' final gift. And Ronan had stolen all of it. Vivian's firm did litigation support work, which meant they knew the best attorneys in South Florida. She made some calls, sent some emails, and 3 days later, I had an appointment with Elliot Bradford. His office was in downtown Miami, 20th floor of a glass tower with views of Biscayne Bay. The kind of place that charged by the quarter hour just to breathe the air. I'd never hired a lawyer before, never needed one. The idea of paying $500 an hour made my stomach hurt. But Vivian had been clear. You need someone who specializes in trustee fraud. Elliot is the best. His receptionist led me to a conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows, leather chairs, a table so polished I could see my reflection. I sat down with my USB drive and tried not to feel out of place. Elliot Bradford walked in 10 minutes later. Late 50s, gray hair, sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. He wore a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, but his handshake was warm. "Miss Blake," he said, sitting across from me, "Vivian speaks highly of you. She said you have a trustee fraud case that's particularly egregious." "That's one word for it." I handed him the USB drive. 427 documents, timeline, property analysis, trust agreement, wire transfers, everything I've found so far. He plugged it into his laptop and started reading. I sat in silence, watching his face. Attorneys were supposed to be unreadable, but I saw his eyebrows rise when he got to the trust amount. Saw his jaw tighten when he read Cameron's letter. Saw him pause, go back, read something again when he got to the property purchases. After 2 hours, he looked up. "Miss Blake, and I'm going to call you that, not Mercer, because that's your name. This is one of the most clear-cut cases of trustee malfeasance I've seen in 28 years of practice." Something in my chest loosened. "You're not crazy," he continued as if reading my mind. "You're not overreacting. This is fraud, multiple counts. Your father's best friend was appointed as trustee with explicit fiduciary duties. He violated every single one of them." He pulled up a document on his screen. "Let me walk you through what we can prove. First, breach of fiduciary duty. A trustee must act in the beneficiary's best interest. Buying real estate for personal gain using trust funds? Textbook violation. Second, self-dealing. The trust explicitly prohibited this. Third, identity theft. He opened a business entity using your social security number when you were a minor. Fourth, fraud. He lied to you about the trust's existence when you turned 18. Fifth, conversion. Taking property that isn't yours. He leaned back. We can also make a strong case for negligent misrepresentation, violation of trust accounting requirements, and possibly RICO charges if we can prove a pattern of criminal enterprise. RICO? My voice sounded faint. Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. If he systematically stole from you over multiple years using fraudulent means, it qualifies. But that's federal, and we don't need to go there unless he fights us. He closed his laptop. You have two options. Path A, file immediately, aggressive litigation, 18 to 24 months to judgment. Path B, spend 3 to 4 months building an absolutely bulletproof case, then file. I recommend B. Why? Because once we file, Ronan will know you know. He'll hire his own lawyers. He'll hide evidence. He'll try to spin a story. Right now, you have the element of surprise. Let's use it. Let's find every piece of evidence, interview every witness, document every lie. Then when we strike, he'll have nowhere to run. I thought about it. 3 more months of pretending everything was normal. 3 more months of Sunday dinners and phone calls and family events where I had to smile at the man who stole my life. How much will this cost? I asked. My retainer is $50,000. Litigation could run $150,000 to $200,000 total if it goes to trial. But Miss Blake, you're looking at recovering $7 to $8 million, plus punitive damages, plus attorney fees. If we win, and we will win, he pays your legal costs. I thought about my savings account. I had about $85,000 saved. Years of careful budgeting, of living in a modest apartment, of driving a used car. I'll need to pay in installments, I said. That's fine. We'll work something out. He paused. Can I ask you something? Why now? What made you finally look? I told him about Ronan's Facebook post, about the phrase started with nothing, that had felt like sandpaper on an open wound. Elliot smiled, a thin, sharp smile. That's what gets them. They can't help but brag. He stood, extending his hand. Welcome aboard, Miss Blake. Let's get your money back. Elliot recommended a private investigator. Diane Waverly, former FBI, 20 years in white-collar crime before retiring to open her own firm. Her retainer was $18,000, another chunk of my savings, but Elliot insisted she was worth it. You need someone who can interview witnesses, trace hidden assets, and testify in court if necessary. Diane's done all of that. I met her at her office in Coral Gables, a small suite above a Cuban restaurant. She was in her early 60s, gray hair cut short, eyes that looked like they'd seen every lie humans could tell. Your attorney sent over the basics, she said, pouring us both coffee. Trustee fraud, identity theft, $1.8 million starting point. What do you need from me? I need to know where the money is now. I need to know if his wife knew. I need to find anyone who can testify that he knew this was wrong. And I need to know if there's anything else he's hiding. Diane pulled out a yellow legal pad. Let's start with employees. Who worked for his construction company during key years? I gave her names I could remember. Lawrence Whitmore, the accountant I'd met briefly during my 2017 rescue mission. Rosa Santiago, the housekeeper who'd worked for the family for years. A few project managers whose names I'd seen on paperwork. What about family members? Diane asked. Anyone who might have overheard conversations. I hesitated. My cousin Tessa. She's a journalist. She's always been observant, but she's also family. I don't know if she'd help. Let me worry about that. Anyone else? I thought about all those Sunday dinners, all those family gatherings. Had anyone else noticed? Had anyone else questioned why I was treated differently? I don't think so, I said finally. Everyone just accepted that I was the charity case. Diane wrote something down. Okay, give me 6 weeks. I'll find your witnesses. For the next 6 weeks, I lived a double life. During the day, I went to work. analyzed financial statements for my actual clients, attended meetings. In the evenings, I came home and worked on my own case. Vivian came over 3 nights a week. We'd order takeout and spread documents across my living room floor, building timelines, tracing money flows, cross-referencing dates. "Look at this," she said one night, pointing at a spreadsheet. "September 1998, B&C Holdings wires $84,000 for property down payment. Same month, the Blake Trust shows a withdrawal of $84,000 marked beneficiary living expenses. But you were 5 years old and living with him. What 5-year-old needs $84,000 in living expenses?" "What about the other properties?" I asked. We traced each one. Every time a property was purchased, there was a corresponding withdrawal from the trust, always marked as something legitimate. Education expenses, medical costs, guardian compensation. "He created a paper trail," Vivian said. "But it's a fake paper trail. You never saw this money." "Can we prove that?" "Yes, because you have college loan statements. You have proof you paid your own tuition, that you worked 2 jobs, that you asked him for help and he refused. The fake accounting doesn't match reality." Meanwhile, Diane was working her contacts. She tracked down Lawrence Whitmore in Sarasota, where he'd retired after leaving Ronan's company in 2016. She found Rosa Santiago in Hialeah, working for a different family now. She even located the title company that handled the property purchases, pulling original documents that showed exactly where the money came from. And then, on May 20th, Diane called me with the first bombshell. "I got Lawrence Whitmore to talk," she said. "You're going to want to hear this recording." She sent me an encrypted audio file. I plugged in headphones and listened to an older man's voice, hesitant at first, then gaining confidence as he talked. "I worked for Ronan Mercer from 2003 to 2016. In 2011, when Saleha turned 18, he asked me to prepare an accounting for the Blake Trust, showing a 0 balance. I told him that was fraud. He said she'd never check, that she trusted him. He offered me an $8,000 bonus to do it. I needed the money. My kids were in college, so I did it. I prepared a summary showing the trust had been depleted due to her living expenses. I inflated everything, made it look like $1.8 million was reasonably spent over 13 years raising a kid. Education, housing, medical, clothes. All lies. I knew it was wrong. But I told myself she'd never know, that she'd never hire her own lawyer to check. I quit in 2016 because he wanted me to forge something else, a trust amendment or something. I said no. That's when I left. I kept copies of everything, though. CYA, you know? Cover your ass. I'll testify if you give me immunity. I sat in my apartment listening to this man admit he'd helped Ronan steal from me, and I felt something strange. Gratitude. Not for the theft, but for the guilt. Lawrence Whitmore had been uncomfortable lying to me. That discomfort had made him keep evidence. Ronan, on the other hand, had been perfectly comfortable. The second bombshell came 2 weeks later. Diane had interviewed Rosa Santiago, the housekeeper. Rosa was nervous at first. She'd signed an NDA when she left the Mercer household, but Diane explained that NDAs don't cover criminal activity. Rosa's statement was recorded on June 8, 2023. "I worked for the Mercers from 2007 to 2018. Mrs. Annette knew about the trust. I heard them arguing about it in 2013. I was cleaning the upstairs hallway, and their bedroom door was open. Mrs. Annette said, 'What if Saleha finds out about her parents' money?' Mr. Ronan said she won't. And even if she does, what can she do? I'm the trustee. She has no proof." Mrs. Annette said, "This feels wrong, Ronan." And he said something like, "You like your lifestyle, don't you? The house, the vacations, the country club? That's Blake money, so stop complaining." After that, she stopped asking questions. She knew. She just chose not to do anything about it. I listened to this recording 3 times. Annette had known. The woman who'd patted my hand and told me I was like family, who'd given me that stuffed bunny when I was 5, who'd taught me how to bake cookies. She'd known Ronan was stealing from me, and she'd stayed quiet because she liked the lifestyle. That hurt almost as much as Ronan's betrayal, because Ronan was greedy, and greed I could understand. But Annette was complicit. She'd had the power to stop it, to tell the truth, to protect me, and she'd chosen comfort instead. The third discovery came from Diane's public records search. She was thorough, checking not just Florida but nationwide probate databases for anyone named Blake who died between 1998 and now. On July 12, 2023, she found it. "So Leah," she said on the phone, her voice tight with controlled anger, "did you know your grandmother died in 2015? I felt the floor drop out from under me. "What?" "Cameron's mother, Margaret Blake, died April 2015 in Portland, Oregon. Left you $180,000 in her will." No, I didn't know. Ronan never told me she died. I lost touch with her after... I stopped thinking back. After I turned 18, after I went to college. The Christmas cards had stopped coming. I'd assumed she was just getting old, forgot to send them. "You're telling me she left me money?" $180,000. The estate attorney in Portland sent notification letters to Ronan Mercer as your listed guardian. He signed for them. He never told you. The money sat in probate for 2 years, then went to state unclaimed property. Can I still get it? Yes. It's in Oregon's unclaimed property database. With 8 years of interest, it's now about $228,000. But Solea, he knew your grandmother died. He got the letters. He could have told you. You could have gone to the funeral. You could have had closure. And he kept it from you because he didn't want you asking questions about family money. I hung up the phone and cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not because of the money, though $228,000 would have changed my life, but because Ronan had stolen my grandmother's death from me. He'd let me believe she'd simply stopped caring, stopped writing, when in reality she'd been dead for 8 years and I'd never known. He hadn't just stolen money. He'd stolen my family, my connections, my grief. The fourth discovery was the darkest. In early August, Diane was going through insurance records, looking for any policies Ronan might have taken out using the trust funds. She found something in the 2019 files that made her call me immediately. "Do you remember signing any paperwork in June 2019? She asked. I thought back. Maybe? Ronan asked me to help with estate planning. There was a stack of papers. I signed a bunch of stuff without really reading it. Did you know one of those papers was a life insurance application? My blood went cold. What? Life insurance policy, filed June 2019. Insured, Solea Blake. Beneficiary, Ronan Mercer. Death benefit, $750,000. I couldn't speak. The application lists him as your guardian, which was legally questionable since you were 26 years old. The stated reason for the policy was coverage for financial support provided to Ward. But Solea, you weren't his ward. You were an adult. And he stood to gain $750,000 if you died. I sat down on my kitchen floor, phone pressed to my ear. He insured me? Like an asset? Exactly like an asset. And you know what the premium is? $3,200 a year. Guess where that money comes from? The trust, I whispered. The trust. He's been paying to insure your life, with your own money, so that he profits if you die. I talked to the insurance agent who processed the application. He said Ronan told him it was standard practice for guardians covering adult dependents. It's not standard. It's predatory. I thought about all the times I'd worked in Ronan's office, driven his company vehicles, helped on construction sites, all the times I could have had an accident, all the times I'd been worth more to him dead than alive. Solea, are you okay? No, I said honestly, but I will be. The fifth discovery came in mid-August, and it was Vivian who found it. We were going through tax returns for B&C Holdings, comparing declared rental income against what the properties should have generated. Something wasn't adding up. Look at this, Vivian said, pointing at her laptop screen. These 6 properties should be generating about $27,000 a month in rental income. That's $324,000 a year. But the tax returns only show $180,000 a year in rental income for the last 8 years. Where's the other $144,000 annually? Maybe the properties were vacant sometimes? For 8 straight years? No way. She pulled up another screen. I checked the rental listings. These units have been consistently rented. So where's the money going? It took us another week to find it. Diane pulled banking records for B&C Holdings and discovered a series of wire transfers, starting in 2015, sent to an account in the Cayman Islands. A shell company called RM Investments Limited. Owner, Ronan Mercer. Balance as of August 2023, $1.4 million. He'd been skimming rental income offshore, hiding it from taxes, building a secret nest egg with money that should have been in the trust. This is bad for him, Elliot said when I showed him the evidence. This is tax evasion, money laundering, and it proves consciousness of guilt. He knew what he was doing was illegal, so he hid the money offshore. Can we freeze that account? Yes. Once we file, I'll request an emergency injunction to freeze all assets, foreign and domestic. He won't be able to touch a dollar. By the end of August, we had everything. 5 major discoveries, dozens of supporting documents, multiple witnesses willing to testify. Lawrence Whitmore had agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity. Rosa Santiago had given a sworn statement. The Oregon estate attorney had confirmed Ronan received and signed for the notification letters. We had the paper trail. We had the witnesses. We had the motive, means, and opportunity. All we needed now was the perfect moment to strike. The hardest part wasn't building the case. It was living the lie while we built it. Elliot's strategy was clear. Don't let him know you know. Keep attending family dinners. Keep answering his calls. When he asks you to help with estate planning, say yes. We want him on tape, in his own words, lying about the trust. We want him to think everything is normal, right up until the moment we file. So that's what I did. September 2023. I went to Devin's birthday party, smiled while they cut the cake, gave my cousin a gift card and a hug. Listened to Ronan tell stories about building his business from nothing. Bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. October 2023. Ronan called, asked me to help organize his financial documents for estate planning. You're so good with numbers, honey. Can you come over this weekend? I went. I sat in his office, the office where I'd worked for free in 2017, where I'd saved his business from IRS audit, and I helped him organize papers. The whole time my phone was in my pocket, recording. Florida is a 2-party consent state, so I'd gotten Ronan to sign a consent form, telling him it was standard practice for estate planning meetings. He signed without reading it. On tape, I heard him say, "I'm proud of what I built, Solea. 6 properties. Started with nothing. Every dollar I earned through hard work. Started with nothing." I smiled and nodded and said, "That's amazing, Uncle Ronan." November 2023. I played my final card. I called Ronan and told him I was struggling financially. A lie. I had savings, but I needed to test something. "Is there any possible way there was money left from my parents?" I asked, making my voice small and desperate. "Like anything at all? Even a small amount? I'm having a hard time." There was a long pause on the phone. Then, "Sweetheart, we've been over this 1,000 times. There was nothing. Your parents weren't good with money. I've supported you out of my own pocket for 25 years. If you need money, you need to budget better. Maybe get a second job like I did at your age. Stop waiting for a handout that doesn't exist." Every word was recorded. Every word was a nail in his coffin. December 2023. Devin announced his engagement to Harper Monroe. Big family party, champagne, congratulations all around. Ronan beamed like a proud father. This was what he'd been building toward, marrying Devin into the Monroe family, securing that connection to old Florida money. I congratulated Devin. I hugged Harper. I smiled for the photos. And I thought, in 3 months, this will all be gone. January 2024. Ronan pulled me aside at a family dinner. "Solea, I've been thinking it's time to formalize the estate plan. I want to make sure Devin is set up properly. Can you help me with the paperwork?" I'm planning a family meeting in March to announce everything officially. Of course, I said. Whatever you need. February 20th, 2024. Elliot filed the lawsuit in Miami-Dade Circuit Court, case number 24 CA009847. Solea Blake versus Ronan Mercer et al. Claims: breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, conversion, identity theft, negligent misrepresentation. Damages sought: $7.8 million in trust value, plus grandmother's inheritance, plus out-of-pocket expenses, plus punitive damages, plus attorney fees. Filed under seal. Ronan didn't know yet. February 22nd, 2024. Elliot filed lis pendens on all 6 properties. Public record, but Ronan didn't check. The properties were frozen. He couldn't sell them, couldn't transfer them, couldn't do anything without court approval. February 25th, 2024. We sent criminal referral packages to 3 agencies. 1. FBI Miami Field Office. Wire fraud. Identity theft. 2. Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Guardianship fraud 3. IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Tax evasion. Fraudulent trust returns. March 1st to 14th, 2024. I attended Sunday dinners. I answered phone calls. I helped Ronan prepare for his estate planning celebration. I listened to him rehearse his speech about giving Devin the properties, about building an empire, about family legacy. The whole time I had copies of the lawsuit in my car. The whole time federal investigators were reviewing my evidence. The whole time the trap was closing around him, and he had no idea. March 15th, 2024. 3 p.m. The meeting, the one you already know about. 30 relatives, champagne, applause. Ronan at the head of the table, playing king, and me, opening my portfolio. The hour after I left was chaos, according to Tessa, who texted me updates in real time. Harper just left. She looks furious. Devin is freaking out. Aunt Paula is crying. Uncle Richard is yelling at Ronan. Mr. Gaines packed up and left. Said he's withdrawing his counsel. Your Aunt Annette locked herself in the bathroom. I can hear her crying through the door. Ronan is calling someone. His face is purple. I've never seen him this angry. Mom just asked me not to write about this. I told her I'm writing about it. I sat in my apartment, phone in hand, reading these updates and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just exhaustion. Vivienne came over that evening with Thai food and wine. We sat on my couch, not really eating, just existing in the aftermath. How do you feel? She asked. I don't know. Numb, I think. That's normal. You just blew up your entire family. They were never my family. I know, but your brain hasn't caught up to that yet. She was right. My hands were shaking. I couldn't focus. I kept replaying the moment Ronan's face changed, the moment he realized I knew everything, the moment his kingdom started crumbling. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. You're dead to this family. We gave you everything and you repay us with lies and slander. You'll regret this. I showed Vivienne. She took my phone, blocked the number, and handed it back. Save that, she said. Evidence of harassment. More texts came over the next few hours. Some from relatives I barely knew, calling me ungrateful, accusing me of tearing the family apart. A few from people I'd actually liked. Aunt Paula, Cousin Tessa, saying they needed time to process, that they didn't know what to believe. Not a single person asked if I was okay. Not one. Around midnight, my phone rang. Elliot Bradford. Just got a call from James Whitlock, he said. He's a criminal defense attorney here in Miami. Ronan just hired him. That was fast. Is that bad? No, it's expected. Whitlock's good, but he can't fix this. I've seen the evidence we have. Ronan's going to lose. The question is whether he'll settle or drag this out. What do you think he'll do? Pride is a funny thing. Some people, when confronted with overwhelming evidence, they fold. Others, they fight to the bitter end because they can't admit they were wrong. Ronan strikes me as the latter. He wasn't wrong. Monday morning, March 16th. Ronan tried to call a title company about transferring Collins Avenue Unit 4B to Devon. That's when he discovered the Lis pendants. What do you mean there's a lien on the property? Tessa texted me his words. She'd been at the house, working on her article. Since when? Who filed it? February 22nd, 2024, the title company told him. Bradford and Associates on behalf of Solea Blake. You can't transfer this property until the lien is released. That's when Ronan finally checked the court records. That's when he saw the lawsuit. That's when he realized I'd filed 3 weeks before the confrontation, that the whole meeting had been theater, that I'd been 3 steps ahead the entire time. Tessa sent me a photo of his face when he made this discovery. I've never seen someone look so simultaneously furious and terrified. Wednesday, March 18th, certified mail arrived at my apartment. FBI, Miami Field Office. Dear Miss Blake, we are investigating allegations of wire fraud, identity theft, and financial exploitation relating to the Blake Family Trust. We have reviewed your criminal referral package and supporting evidence. Please contact Special Agent Jennifer Dawson at 305 CISS to schedule an interview. I called immediately. Agent Dawson picked up on the second ring. Miss Blake, thank you for calling. I've spent the last few days reviewing your evidence package. It's one of the most thoroughly documented cases I've seen. Before we proceed, I want to explain what happens next. She walked me through the process. The FBI would conduct its own investigation, interview witnesses, subpoena financial records. This could take 6 to 12 months. If they found sufficient evidence, which she strongly implied they would, they'd present the case to a federal prosecutor. The prosecutor would decide whether to indict. What about the civil case? I asked. That proceeds independently. You can settle the civil case or go to trial. It doesn't affect our investigation. However, anything Ronan says in civil proceedings can be used in criminal prosecution. So he's going to be very careful about what he says on the record. How long before he's arrested? If it comes to that, probably 12 to 18 months. Federal investigations move slowly. But Miss Blake, I want to be clear. This is serious. We're talking about wire fraud, which carries up to 20 years. Identity theft, another 15. Financial exploitation of a minor, another 10. If convicted on all counts, your guardian could face significant prison time. Guardian, she called him my guardian, not my uncle, not my family, my guardian, the person who was supposed to protect me. Thursday, March 19th, another certified letter, this one from the IRS. Notice of audit, Mercer Construction LLC, B&C, Holdings LLC, tax years 2011 to 2023. Areas of examination, fraudulent business deductions, unreported offshore income, false trust distribution claims. Elliot called that evening. He's being audited. That's good for us. The IRS doesn't audit unless they think there's something to find, and they have criminal investigators too. If they find tax fraud, they'll refer it to the Department of Justice. How much trouble is he in? Legally? Enormous trouble. Financially? He's about to be destroyed. Banks don't like lending to people under federal investigation. Clients don't like hiring contractors who are being audited. His business is going to collapse. Good, I said, and meant it. Friday, March 20th, Devon called me. First time since the confrontation. Solea. His voice was rough, like he'd been crying. Can we talk? I don't think that's a good idea. Please, just 5 minutes. I need to understand. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him. Coffee shop, public place, Vivian on standby. Devon looked terrible. He'd lost weight in 5 days. His eyes were red-rimmed. He sat across from me, hands wrapped around a coffee cup he didn't drink from. Is it true? He asked. All of it? The trust? The money? The forgery? Yes. I didn't know. I swear to God, Solea, I didn't know. I believed him. Devon had been spoiled, entitled, careless with money because money had always been there. But he wasn't malicious. He was just oblivious. Harper left me, he said quietly. Called off the engagement. Her father looked into the properties, found out they're not actually ours, that they're tied up in litigation. She said her family can't be associated with this kind of scandal. I'm sorry, I said, and part of me meant it. Are you? He looked up, and there was something raw in his expression. You just destroyed everything. My inheritance, my relationship, my father's reputation. Do you even care? Your inheritance was never yours, Devin. It was mine. Your father's reputation was built on theft. And Harper, if she only loved you for what you could give her, then she didn't really love you. That's easy for you to say. You're not the one who just lost everything. No, I'm the one who lost everything 26 years ago when I was 5 years old and nobody noticed. He flinched. I'm sorry you're collateral damage, I continued. I genuinely am. But this isn't my fault. I didn't steal from you. I didn't lie to you. I didn't make you believe you were entitled to property bought with stolen money. Your father did that. He left without finishing his coffee. I watched him walk to his car, an Audi, probably still making payments, and drive away. I didn't see him again until the settlement meeting. April was a month of dominoes falling. April 8th, Mercer Construction lost 3 major contracts. Clients didn't want to be associated with someone under federal investigation. Revenue dropped 60% in a week. April 10th, the bank called Ronan's line of credit due immediately. $340,000 owed. He couldn't pay. All his liquid cash was either offshore, frozen by our emergency injunction, or tied up in properties, frozen by lis pendens. April 12th, Annette filed for legal separation, moved in with her sister, filed a motion claiming she was unaware of any wrongdoing and seeking to protect her marital property rights from his legal troubles. Translation: Annette was trying to make sure she didn't go down with Ronan's ship. April 15th, property taxes came due on the Coral Gables estate. $18,000. Ronan didn't have the cash. The county filed a tax lien. His whole world was collapsing in slow motion, and I watched it happen from my apartment in Coconut Grove, receiving updates from Tessa, from Elliot, from public records. I felt no joy in it, just a grim satisfaction that justice was being served. On April 18th, Diane called with one final discovery. I kept digging into Ronan's finances, she said. Found something interesting. There's an offshore account in the Cayman Islands we missed initially. RM Investments Limited. Balance, $1.4 million. Want to guess where that money came from? Rental income. Exactly. He's been skimming from the properties since 2015, sending money offshore to avoid taxes. This is textbook money laundering. Elliot filed an emergency motion to freeze that account too. New total owed, $14.2 million. 3 things happened on May 1st that finally broke Ronan. First, FBI interview. Agent Dawson brought him in for voluntary questioning. Ronan brought his lawyer, James Whitlock. They presented 247 pages of evidence. Wire transfers, forged documents, Lawrence Whitmore's testimony, Rosa's statement, the life insurance policy. Whitlock called Elliot afterward. We need to talk settlement. My client is looking at federal prison time. He wants to resolve this. Second, bank filed foreclosure notice on the Coral Gables estate. He'd missed 2 mortgage payments. 90 days until auction. Third, Devin showed up at Ronan's house that evening. I know this because Tessa was there, writing her article, and she told me what happened. Devin said, Dad, I got a job. Marketing coordinator, $52,000 a year. I start Monday. I'm moving out, and you need to settle with Solea before this gets worse. Ronan tried to argue, tried to spin it as a betrayal, tried to make Devin choose sides. Devin said, You stole from an orphan, Dad. From your best friend's daughter. There are no sides, there's just what's right. And he left. We met in Elliot's conference room. Same room where I'd first hired him a year ago. This time, Ronan sat across from me, looking 20 years older than he had at that March meeting. James Whitlock did most of the talking. My client is prepared to settle. However, he does not have $14 million in liquid assets. Here's what he can offer. Transfer of all 6 Miami Beach properties. Transfer of the Coral Gables estate. Transfer of the Cayman account. and a structured payment plan for the remaining balance, Elliot countered. All 6 properties, the estate, the Cayman account, plus $500,000 cash paid over 10 years. And a confession of judgment. If he misses a single payment, we get automatic court victory. Plus, your client agrees not to contest the Oregon grandmother inheritance. In exchange, Miss Blake agrees not to pursue criminal charges beyond what federal agencies choose to do independently. I watched Ronan's face. He looked hollow, like someone had scooped out everything inside and left just the shell. "I'll have nothing," he said quietly. "You'll have your freedom," Elliot replied, "and that's more than you deserve." I leaned forward. "I want to ask you something, Ronan. Just one question. And I want the truth." He looked at me for the first time. "Did you ever love me? Even a little?" The conference room went silent. Ronan's hands were shaking. His voice, when he finally spoke, was barely audible. I told myself I did. I told myself I was protecting you by using the money wisely, that you'd benefit eventually. But the truth? He looked down at his hands. I loved what you represented. Security, opportunity, a future for Devon. I loved myself more than I ever loved you. It was the only honest thing he'd said to me in 26 years. "Thank you," I said, "for finally being honest. May 10th, 2024, we signed the settlement agreement. Judge approved it. Properties transferred. Money moved. Confession of judgment filed. It was over. I walked out of that courthouse into Miami sunshine, and I felt light, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't realize was there until it was gone. My phone buzzed. Text from Vivian. "How do you feel?" I typed back, "Free." But freedom, I was about to learn, came with its own complications. Because now I had $9.3 million in assets, a $500,000 future payment plan, and a choice to make about what to do with it all. That choice would define everything that came next. Standing in my apartment the day after the settlement, I looked at the property transfer documents spread across my kitchen table. 7 properties, $8.6 million in real estate, a Cayman Islands account with $1.4 million cash, monthly rental income of $27,000. I was, on paper, wealthy. I was also exhausted. Vivian came over that morning with coffee and bagels. She found me still in my pajamas at noon, staring at the documents like they might explain themselves. "Have you slept?" she asked. "Not really." She set the coffee in front of me, sat down. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking, I don't know what to do with all of this." I gestured at the papers. "I spent a year fighting to get it back. Now I have it and I don't know what I want." "What do you mean?" I struggled to articulate the feeling. This money was supposed to give me security, freedom, options. My parents died to give me this. But looking at it now, all I see is what it cost. The lies, the betrayal, the 26 years of feeling like I wasn't enough. And I keep thinking, if I just keep these properties, if I just live off the rental income and build my own comfortable life, does that make me like him? Saleha, that's ridiculous. You're nothing like, am I though? Because the question in my head right now isn't what would make me happy. It's what would make this mean something. I looked at her. My parents left me this money so I could be free. But thousands of kids are in the same situation I was in. Guardians stealing from them, trustees lying to them, and nobody's helping them because they don't have the skills I have, the resources to hire investigators and lawyers. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You're thinking about starting something." "I don't know. Maybe." "Is that crazy?" "No. It's the most Saleha thing I've ever heard." We spent the next 3 weeks running numbers. If I sold 4 of the 6 Miami Beach properties, I could raise about $4.8 million. Invested conservatively at 5% return, that would generate $240,000 annually. Combined with rental income from the 2 properties I kept, about $9,000 per month, that was $348,000 a year to work with. Enough to hire staff, enough to help people, Enough to make sure no other 5-year-old had to grow up feeling grateful for crumbs from their own table. On July 15th, 2024, I met with an attorney who specialized in nonprofit formation. Her name was Patricia Reeves, and she'd helped establish 3 major foundations in South Florida. "What's your mission?" she asked. I told her about guardianship fraud, about trustees who stole from children, about the fact that Florida alone had over 300 reported cases of financial exploitation by guardians in the last 5 years, and those were just the ones that got reported. "Most kids never find out," I said. "They grow up believing their burdens. They never question why they got nothing while everyone else got everything. And by the time they're old enough to ask questions, the evidence is gone, the witnesses are dead, and the statute of limitations has run out." Patricia was taking notes. "What would your foundation do?" "Free forensic accounting for suspected guardian fraud cases, free legal representation for trust beneficiaries, emergency grants for young adults escaping financial abuse, enough to get an apartment, buy a car, start over, and financial literacy training so kids aging out of foster care or leaving guardianships know how to protect themselves." She looked up. "That's ambitious. Do you have funding?" "I have $4.8 million to endow it, and 2 properties generating operational income. Is that enough?" She smiled. "That's more than enough. Let's build this." We filed the nonprofit paperwork in late July. The name was obvious from the start. The Blake Legacy Foundation. Not Mercer, not my chosen family's name, my parents' name, my real name. Cameron and Iris Blake had wanted to give me security. Ronan had stolen that. But I was taking their intention, their love, their protection, and scaling it. They'd wanted to save 1 child. I was going to save dozens. The hardest part was choosing which properties to sell. They were all tainted in my mind, all purchased with stolen money. But I made myself think strategically. Collins Avenue Unit 4B and Ocean Drive Unit 2A had the best rental history, most reliable tenants, lowest maintenance costs. I kept those. The other 4 went on the market in early August. By September 1st, all 4 had sold. Total proceeds, $4.8 million. I took the Coral Gables estate, Ronan's former home, the place where I'd grown up in that tiny converted office, and transformed it. Ripped out the expensive furniture, repainted the walls, converted the bedrooms into offices and a conference room. Ronan's master suite became my office. Devin's childhood bedroom with the bay windows became the legal services department. My old room, that 110-square-foot space, became a supply closet. There was poetry in that. I hired slowly, carefully, 2 attorneys who specialized in estate litigation, 2 forensic accountants who'd worked fraud cases, a social worker who'd spent 10 years in foster care services, a private investigator, not Diane, she was semi-retired, but someone she recommended, and Vivian, who quit her corporate job to become the foundation's chief operating officer. "Are you sure?" I asked her when she gave notice at her firm. "You're giving up partner track to help build something that matters?" "Yes, I'm sure." We opened the doors on September 15th, 2024, 3 months after the settlement. I stood in what used to be Ronan's foyer, now converted to a reception area, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 26 years. Home. Our first client came to us on September 23rd. Her name was Jasmine Rodriguez. She was 20 years old, wearing thrift store clothes that didn't quite fit, and she looked terrified walking into our reception area. I met with her personally that first day. "My parents died when I was 11, she said, voice barely above a whisper. "Car accident. My Aunt Maria became my guardian. She said there was life insurance money, $240,000. That would be mine when I turned 18. When I turned 18, I asked about it. She said it was all spent raising me, food, clothes, school, everything. She showed me receipts." "But you don't believe her," I said. I don't know. The receipts seemed real, but some things didn't add up. Like she said she spent $3,000 on my braces, but I never had braces. And she said $8,000 for private school tuition, but I went to public school. Did you bring copies of the receipts? She pulled a folder from her backpack. Her hands were shaking. I spent the next hour reviewing her aunt's accounting. It took me 15 minutes to spot the fraud, another 30 to document it. Some receipts were duplicated with different dates. Some were for amounts that didn't match the service provider's actual pricing. Some were for things that couldn't possibly have been spent on an 11-year-old. Jasmine, I said gently, this accounting is fake. These receipts are fabricated or manipulated. Your aunt spent maybe $40,000 legitimately raising you. The other $200,000 is unaccounted for. She started crying. I knew it. I knew something was wrong, but she kept telling me I was being ungrateful, that I was paranoid. You're not paranoid. You're being stolen from, and we're going to help you get it back. It took us 3 months. Our forensic team traced the money. Her aunt had bought a rental property in 2016 using Jasmine's social security number. Filed taxes claiming Jasmine as dependent while pocketing the rental income. Classic guardianship fraud, textbook case. We filed suit in November. By December, her aunt settled. The property transferred to Jasmine plus $50,000 cash for emotional distress. When we handed Jasmine the settlement check, she cried in my office for 20 minutes. You gave me my life back, she said. Someone should have done this for me, I told her. Now I'm doing it for you. By December 31st, 2024, we'd helped 19 families, recovered $3.2 million in stolen funds, provided financial literacy training to 84 young adults, placed 7 people in emergency housing grants. The word was spreading. News articles, social media, word of mouth. We were getting 50 intake calls a week. We had to hire more staff. I worked 70-hour weeks and felt more alive than I had in years. I almost didn't go to Whole Foods that day. It was late afternoon. I was exhausted from back-to-back client meetings, and I had a foundation holiday party that evening. But my fridge was empty, and I couldn't serve my staff takeout pizza for the 3rd time that month. So I went. I was in the produce section, reaching for organic spinach, thinking about whether I should just cater the party instead, when I turned the corner into the bakery aisle. And there he was. Ronan. We both froze. I don't know who was more surprised. He looked old. Not just older, he was only 58, but worn down. He wore dusty work clothes, jeans with paint stains, a flannel shirt with a frayed collar, steel-toe boots caked with dried mud. In his cart, generic white bread, store-brand peanut butter, the cheapest coffee on the shelf. This was a man who used to buy imported Italian espresso and artisan sourdough. He stared at me. I stared back. Neither of us moved. The silence stretched out, thick and uncomfortable. Shoppers pushed carts past us, oblivious to the fact that 2 people were standing in the middle of Whole Foods, frozen in the wreckage of 26 years of lies. Finally, he spoke. So, Leah. His voice was hoarse, like he didn't use it much anymore. Ronan. Another silence. He was gripping his cart so hard his knuckles were white. I didn't know you shopped here, he said. I grew up 3 blocks from here. This was my mom's Whole Foods. He flinched. Right. I forgot. You forgot a lot of things. That landed like a slap. He looked down at his generic peanut butter, at the cart full of the cheapest versions of everything. His voice cracked. I know you won't believe this. I know you shouldn't. But I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I felt something twist in my chest. Not anger. I'd moved past anger months ago. Not even satisfaction at seeing him reduced to this. Just tiredness. Are you sorry you did it? I asked. Or sorry you got caught? Both. He looked up and I saw tears forming in his eyes. But mostly that I did it. Your father was my best friend. The best man I've ever known. He trusted me and His voice broke completely. I betrayed him. I betrayed you. Every single day for 26 years, I chose money over doing the right thing. I stood there holding my organic spinach, watching this man cry in the middle of Whole Foods, and I felt something unexpected. Pity. Why did you do it, Ronan? He wiped his face with the back of his hand. I don't know if there's an answer that makes sense. It started small. I was in debt. The business was failing. The insurance money came through, and I thought, I'll just borrow it. Just use it to stabilize things. I'll pay it back. But you didn't. No, because then I bought the first property, and it did well, and I thought, why not buy another? The money's just sitting there. Soleia's a kid. She doesn't need it yet. I'm making it grow. And then it became normal. Buying properties, using the trust fund, telling myself it was investment strategy. And by the time you turned 18, I'd built this whole life on that money. How could I tell you? How could I admit what I'd done? So you lied. So I lied. And I kept lying. And I convinced myself you were better off not knowing. That I'd raised you, given you a home, and that was payment enough. He shook his head. I built an entire story where I was the hero, where you should be grateful. And I believed it. That's the worst part. I actually believed my own lies. People were starting to stare at us. An older woman reached past me for lettuce, giving us a concerned look. Your father would be ashamed of me, Ronan said quietly. Your mother would be ashamed of me, and I'm ashamed of myself every day. I wake up in that apartment. His voice was barely a whisper now, and I think about what I did to you, to Cameron's daughter, to my best friend's little flower. That phrase, little flower, my father's nickname for me, made my throat tight. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he continued. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry, and I know it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't give you back those 26 years, but it's the truth. I looked at this broken man, this thief who'd stolen my childhood, and I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness. I wasn't there yet, might never be there, but a kind of release. You could have been my family, Ronan. Real family. I would have loved you. You didn't need to steal from me to keep me. You just needed to be honest. He was sobbing openly now, not bothering to hide it. I know. I used the properties to start a foundation, I told him. We help kids whose guardians steal from them. Last month, we recovered $200,000 for a 20-year-old whose aunt stole her inheritance. Next month, we're helping 3 siblings whose uncle emptied their college fund. I named the foundation after my parents. He looked up at me, face wet with tears. That's good. That's what Cameron would have wanted. He was always trying to fix things, to help people. I know. I read his letters. A pause, then quietly. You should read them again sometime. Remember who he was. He was a better man than I could ever be. I shifted my cart, ready to leave. I need to go. I have people depending on me. Soleia? I stopped. Thank you, he said, for not pursuing criminal charges. The FBI closed their investigation last month. The IRS settled for the back taxes. I could have gone to prison. You gave me mercy I didn't deserve. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it because I'm not carrying you anymore. You're not my family. You're not my responsibility. You're not my problem. You're just a stranger who stole from me once. I walked past him, continuing down the aisle toward the checkout. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. That chapter was closed. Behind me, I heard him say so quietly I almost missed it. Goodbye, little flower. I kept walking. New Year's Day, I sat in my office at the foundation, the office that used to be Ronan's bedroom, and wrote my annual report. Not for donors or board members, but for myself. A way to mark time, to measure progress, to remember why I did this. Blake Legacy Foundation. First-year cases handled, 23 funds recovered for clients, $4.7 million. Young adults trained, 127 emergency housing grants. Provided 9 lives changed. Immeasurable. I thought about Jasmine Rodriguez, now attending FIU on scholarship, studying accounting because she wanted to protect people, like Soleia protected me. About Marcus Webb, who'd recovered $140,000 from his gambling-addicted father and was now in trade school, sending us $50 a month in donations because he wanted to pay it forward. About the Ramirez siblings, ages 19, 17, and 15, who'd recovered their full $320,000 college fund, plus $80,000 in punitive damages from their uncle. All three were in college now. 23 families, 23 stories of theft and betrayal, 23 victories for the kids who deserved better. My phone buzzed. Text from Vivian. Time magazine wants an interview. They're doing a feature on financial justice nonprofits. You interested? I typed back. Only if they let me talk about the work, not just my story. I'll tell them. The Time article came out in March. The headline, "The Woman Who Turned Inheritance Theft into a Movement." They interviewed me, Jasmine, Marcus, our legal team, even Lawrence Whitmore, who'd been so racked with guilt about his role in Ronan's fraud that he'd volunteered to help us identify red flags in trust accountings. The article went viral. 2.3 million views in the first week. My inbox exploded with interview requests, speaking opportunities, collaboration offers from law schools wanting to create clinic programs around guardian fraud. And in April, I got an email that changed everything. Dear Ms. Blake, we'd like to invite you to speak at TEDx Miami in June. Proposed title, Paper Beats Promises, What I Learned Suing My Guardian. We believe your story would resonate with our audience. Are you interested? The TEDx Miami stage was smaller than I expected. Red carpet, spotlight, 500 people in the audience, and cameras recording for YouTube. I wore a simple black dress, not the expensive kind, just clean and professional, and the necklace my mother had left me, a small silver pendant with my birthstone. I walked onto the stage, and the spotlight was blinding. I couldn't see faces, just the glow of phones recording, the red light of cameras. I took a breath and began. When I was 5 years old, my parents died in a car accident. The audience went quiet. Their best friend became my guardian. He told me he loved me. He told me I was family. He told me my parents left nothing behind. He lied about all three. I told them everything. The trust fund, the theft, the lies, the 26 years of feeling like a burden, the discovery in the courthouse, the investigation, the confrontation, the settlement. But I didn't stop there. Here's what I want you to understand, I said, leaning into the microphone. If someone makes you feel guilty for having boundaries, they're profiting from you not having any. If someone tells you to be grateful while treating you like less than, they're trying to normalize your exploitation. If your family only values you when you're useful, they don't value you. They value your utility. I saw people in the audience nodding, some with tears in their eyes. I spent 26 years believing I was the charity case, the burden, the one who owed gratitude for not being abandoned. Then I discovered the truth. My parents left me $1.8 million in a trust. My guardian stole it, used it to build a real estate empire, made me work for free, made me pay his debts, made me feel guilty for asking questions. And he did it all while convincing me I should thank him. I paused, let that sink in. I spent $22,000 on legal fees and investigation costs to learn the truth. It was the best money I ever spent, because it bought me freedom. And freedom, real freedom, is worth more than any inheritance. I told them about the foundation, about Jasmine and Marcus and the Ramirez siblings, about the 47 families we'd helped in 18 months, about the $8.9 million in stolen funds we'd recovered, about the 200 young adults we'd trained to spot financial abuse before it destroyed them. My parents left me $1.8 million not because they wanted me to be rich, I said, my voice steady and clear. They left it because they wanted me to be free, free to choose my own path, free to make my own mistakes, free to build my own life. My guardian stole that money, but he couldn't steal who I am. I looked out at the audience. At all those faces I still couldn't see clearly in the spotlight. The Blake Legacy Foundation has helped 47 families recover $8.9 million in stolen funds. We've trained over 200 young adults to protect themselves. We've provided emergency housing for 15 people escaping financial exploitation. My parents' money is doing exactly what they wanted, protecting me, and now protecting others. That's not revenge. That's legacy. I let the silence hang for a moment. Paper beats promises, every single time, because people who have nothing to hide, hide nothing. If you're in a situation like I was, if you feel like the unpaid help, the ungrateful one, the person who should just be happy with scraps, I want you to hear this. You deserve receipts. You deserve transparency. You deserve to know where your money went. And if they can't give you answers, that is your answer. The audience erupted in applause. It started scattered, then built to something overwhelming. People stood. The applause went on for 4 minutes. I counted because I didn't know what else to do except stand there, feeling the weight of all those people believing me, supporting me, understanding. When it finally quieted, I said my final line. Your worth is not determined by the people who failed to see it. You are not the burden. You are not the problem. You are not required to light yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. I was the invisible ATM for a family that never loved me. Now I decide who gets access to me. I decide who earns the title family. I decide what my parents' legacy means. And I decided it means protect the vulnerable, expose the thieves, build something that outlasts the pain. Backstage, my phone was blowing up with messages. The TEDx coordinator told me it was already trending on Twitter. Someone had clipped the Paper Beats Promises line, and it had 50,000 retweets in 30 minutes. But the message that mattered most was from a number I'd saved but never responded to. I watched your talk. I'm proud of you. What you're doing matters. Devin. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back. Thank you. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just acknowledgement. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I've been sending the $200 every month. Month 13 now. I'm going to keep going. I know. Thank you. I'm sorry for what my father did, and for not seeing it sooner. I know you are. That was the end of the conversation, but it was more than we'd had in over a year. Maybe someday there would be more. Maybe not. I got to decide. Ronan Mercer, 59 years old, works as a project manager for a mid-sized construction firm. Salary, $68,000. Rents a 2-bedroom apartment in Kendall. Drives a 2016 Toyota Camry with 140,000 miles. Has made every $50,000 annual payment on time. We're on payment 3 of 10. His reputation in Miami is permanently damaged. Most people know him as that guy who stole from his goddaughter. He attends court-ordered financial counseling. He writes letters to me he never sends. I know this because his therapist told my therapist. They network in the same professional circles, and apparently Ronan talks about me every session. I don't read the letters. I don't need to. Annette Mercer, 56 years old. Divorced, living in Fort Lauderdale with her sister. Works as a real estate agent, making about $45,000 a year in commissions. She posted on Facebook once, "Sometimes the hardest thing is realizing you enabled something terrible through silence. I'm working on being better." I saw it. I didn't respond. But I screenshot it and saved it in a folder I labeled People Who Are Trying. Devin Mercer, 29 years old. Marketing coordinator at a tech startup, now making $68,000. Lives in Aventura with 1 roommate. Single. Harper married a hedge fund manager named Sebastian Vaughn last November. Devin sends me $200 every month toward his father's debt, even though legally he doesn't have to. 13 payments so far. $2,600 total. It'll take him 384 years to repay what his father stole at this rate, but I appreciate the gesture. We text occasionally. Brief, polite. Last month he sent me a link to a Guardian fraud case in the news with just, "Your work is making a difference." I added him to my mental list of people I might forgive someday. Cousin Tessa, 36 years old. Investigative journalist. Won the Florida Society of Journalists Award for her Miami Herald feature on the foundation. We have coffee every other Sunday now. She volunteers at the foundation teaching young adults how to investigate your own family's finances. She's writing a book about guardianship fraud in America. I'm writing the foreword. Vivian Cross, 33 years old. Foundation COO, my best friend, the person who believed me from day one. She lives 2 blocks from me now. We have dinner together 3 times a week. She's dating someone, a lawyer named Marcus, different Marcus than our client, and she's happy. I'm her maid of honor when they get married next spring. Lawrence Whitmore, 70 years old. Retired accountant living in Sarasota. Volunteers with the foundation remotely, reviewing trust accountings for red flags. He says helping us is his penance. I accepted his help, but not his guilt. What he did was wrong, but he owned it, testified against Ronan, and is now using his knowledge to help others. That's the difference between him and Ronan. Lawrence grew a conscience. Ronan only grew regrets when he got caught. Rosa Santiago, 61 years old. Still working as a housekeeper, but I hired her to clean the foundation offices once a week. $30 per hour, triple what Ronan paid her. She told me last month, "I should have said something when you were young. I'm sorry." I told her, "You were an employee. You weren't responsible for protecting me. That was his job." She cried. We hugged. She bakes me empanadas now. Harper Monroe, 29 years old. Married to Sebastian Vaughn, living in Palm Beach, pregnant with their first child. She donated $10,000 to the foundation anonymously last year. I know it was her because the donation came from HV Charitable Trust, her new initials, and included a note, "For the work you're doing." Devin will never know. I'll never tell him. Me, Solea Blake, 33 years old. Foundation Executive Director. Living in a modest condo in Coconut Grove, not the Coral Gables mansion, not the expensive Miami Beach properties, just a quiet 2-bedroom with good light and a view of the water. Dating Rafael Santos, who I met at a grief counseling group 18 months ago. He lost both parents in a house fire when he was 12. We understand each other in ways that don't require explanation. He proposed in October. We're getting married at the foundation building in March. The house that used to be Ronan's, bought with my stolen money, now helping kids who need protection. My Portland cousins are walking me down the aisle. Devin sent a congratulations card. I kept it but didn't respond. I'm writing a book. Working title: The Inheritance I Never Knew I Had. How I Discovered My Guardian Stole $1.8 million and How I Got It Back. My agent says publishers are interested. All proceeds will go to the foundation. I see a therapist every Tuesday. I'm learning that healing isn't linear, that some scars don't close, that you can be both strong and broken at the same time. I'm learning to build family on my terms, people who earn their way in through honesty and effort, not blood or obligation. My parents didn't live to see me grow up, but I'm living the life they dreamed for me anyway. I work 70-hour weeks, and I'm exhausted and happy and purposeful in ways I never was when I was trying to earn love from people who saw me as an expense. Ronan took 26 years from me. I'm not giving him one more second. After the TEDx talk went live, I did a few podcast interviews. One host asked me a question that stuck with me. Do you think Ronan will ever truly change? I thought about that Whole Foods encounter, about his tears, his apologies, his acknowledgement of what he'd done, and I realized something. I don't know, I said. And honestly, it's not my job to care anymore. I spent 26 years caring about his approval, his opinion, his version of who I should be. I'm done. He's living with his choices. I'm living with mine. And mine are better. What would you say to someone in a similar situation? The host asked. Someone who suspects their guardian or family member is stealing from them. 3 things, I said. First, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Don't let people gaslight you into ignoring red flags. Second, document everything. Save emails. Record conversations legally. Keep receipts. Paper beats promises. Always. Third, your worth is not determined by the people who failed to see it. You are not the burden. You're not the problem. You're not required to sacrifice yourself to keep someone else comfortable. And if they're afraid of losing their family, the host pressed, then they need to ask themselves, is this really family? Because family doesn't steal from you. Family doesn't exploit your loyalty. Family doesn't make you feel grateful for getting back what was always yours. I lost the family I thought I had, but I built a better one. People who choose me, who show up for me, who see my value without me having to prove it constantly. That's family. Everything else is just people who share your DNA. The interview went viral too. Clips of it circulated on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Young people started using hashtag #PaperBeatsPromises as a hashtag for sharing their own stories of family financial abuse. The movement was bigger than me now, and I realized this is what my parents wanted. Not for me to be rich, not for me to be comfortable, but for me to be free enough to help others find freedom too. On the 1-year anniversary of the settlement, May 10th, 2025, I wrote my parents a letter. I've been writing them since I was 25, after Ronan shut me down the last time I asked about inheritance. Now I have a box with 63 letters in it. This was number 64. Dear Mom and Dad, I'm 33 now, older than you ever got to be. That feels strange to write. I recovered the money you left me. Most of it anyway. Ronan spent some, but I got back enough to matter. More importantly, I understand now what you were trying to give me. Not wealth, freedom. The freedom to choose my own path without being controlled by fear or debt or dependence. I used that freedom to build something. The Blake Legacy Foundation. We help kids who got betrayed like I did. Last month, we helped our 74th family. That's 74 kids who won't grow up feeling like burdens. 74 kids who will know their worth wasn't determined by the person who stole from them. Mom, you sang Blackbird while you cooked. I play it sometimes while I'm working. Raphael thinks I'm crazy, playing the same song on repeat, but it reminds me of you, of Sunday mornings in the window seat, of feeling safe. Dad, you called me your little flower. Ronan said that phrase to me once in Whole Foods, and it hurt so much I thought I might break. But then I realized, he doesn't get to own that name. You gave it to me. It's mine. I'm reclaiming it. I'm getting married in October. Raphael is kind and honest, and he makes me laugh. You would like him. He lost his parents, too. He understands grief in ways that most people don't. Ronan isn't in prison. He's working a regular job, living in a small apartment, paying me back slowly. Part of me wanted him to suffer more, but mostly I just wanted him gone from my life. And he is. I see him once, in that grocery store, and I walked away. That's closure enough. I wish you were here. I wish you could meet Raphael, could see the foundation, could know that your daughter turned out okay despite everything. I wish I could hear your voices again, just once. I wish I could ask you for advice on 1,000 things. But I'm building the life you wanted for me. I'm protecting kids who need it. I'm choosing family carefully. I'm free. Thank you for loving me enough to plan for my future. Thank you for trusting Ronan. Even though he failed you, at least you tried to protect me. Thank you for leaving me more than money. You left me your values, your work ethic, your belief that people deserve better. I'm living that out every day. Love always, your little flower, Solea. I folded the letter, put it in the box with the others, and closed the lid. Then I went to work. Because 74 families wasn't enough. There were more kids out there who needed help. More trustees who needed to be held accountable. More stories that needed to end in justice instead of exploitation. And I had the rest of my life to make sure those stories got written. Thank you so much for staying with me through this entire journey. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own relationships or financial boundaries, or if you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share it. The Blake Legacy Foundation is fictional, but the problem is real. Guardianship fraud happens every day. If you suspect someone in your life is being financially exploited by a guardian or trustee, there are resources available. Document everything. Trust your instincts. And remember, paper beats promises. If you found value in this story, please subscribe to this channel. I share stories of justice, resilience, and the strength it takes to stand up for yourself, even when the whole world tells you to be grateful for crumbs. Your worth is not determined by the people who failed to see it. You are not the burden. You are not the problem. You are enough, exactly as you are. Thank you for listening.